Hello soulmate, welcome back to my channel. My name is Princess, and in this tutorial I'll be teaching you how to draft a basic sleeve pattern that will fit all your pattern according to your measurements. A basic sleeve pattern is a sleeve block that is used in pattern making to create sleeve for garments. So basically you need your pattern paper to do this. You need your ruler, your comb tool, your measuring tape. You'll be needing your basic bodies to do this. So if you look what I have here, this is my front basic pattern that I drafted, and this is the back pattern. So getting this two, you need to measure your round armhole measurement for your front and also the back. So for us to get our armhole measurement, which is the first thing you need to begin to draft, you have to help me to assemble this together like so. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Now we are going to measure this distance, the front and the back. Let me keep this aside so that you see properly what you are doing. So now, placing your tape measure from the tip of your shoulder slant, you're going to measure this. Watch what I'm doing. Measure this armhole. Measure it properly until you get to the end. Can you see? And once you have done that, you will write it down. This is my front armhole. And next, I'll measure for the back armhole. We continue. Make sure you measure this correctly to the end, and then you add it plus the back armhole. Do you see? Now, whatever thing you have gotten, you have to add it up together, as in add your front armhole and your back armhole together, and you divide whatever you have, divide it by 2. Now, after dividing it by 2, please help me add 0.25. So wait, let me go over it again. Measure your front armhole and your back armhole, add it up together, divide it by 2, and you add 0.25. So what I have here is 10.75. What I have at the back is 9.5. I'll add it together to get 20.25. I divide it by 2. Then I'll add 0.25 to it. So my armhole measurements, 10.375. Yes, I'll keep it aside. Now, the next important measurement we need is our armhole depth. You've been wondering, how am I going to do that? Your armhole depth. So now you have to put the paper underneath and bring the back one. Let them meet together. Let them kiss each other like this. Pin it down. If you can't hold it, you can use your tape to pin it down. What they're going to do for me is to knot that point where they meet together. Knot it. You get, come over to the front and put a dot there at the tip of the front. Come to the back, put a dot there. Do you understand? Now we have 3 points, isn't it? So what do we do next? Help me to connect these 2 points, connect it together. Now after doing that, try to get the midpoint for me. So I'm placing my measuring tape on it like so, and I'm bending it over so I can get the midpoint. Okay, once you get the midpoint, please put a dot on it. You see? Now the next thing you have to do for me is to connect this point to this dot here. Don't skip any part of this. Please make sure that you are following. You see? Now after getting this, you have to now measure it from this point down. What I have here is 7.5. 7.5. So this now is my armhole depth. Do you see? I'll keep all this aside. We have 2 important measurements that we have just taken now. Our armhole measurements, right? Which is 10.375. Please use your accurate measurement and get yours. And now we have our armhole depth, which is 7.5. I'll tell you what we're going to do with this. So now we'll quickly keep this aside and go right over to our paper. Remember, the first thing we did is to get our armhole measurement. Don't forget that. Now we have measured our armhole depth. So I hope you remember how we got this point. I will say that our armhole depth is 7.5. Now another important measurement that we need is our cap height. Now to make it easier for you, the simple way I use that work for me, that I'm going to teach you how to get your cap height, is to minus 1.25 from your armhole depth. What we have here is 7.5. So I'm going to say 7.5 minus 1.25. And that will give me 6.5. Now 6.5 is my cap height. I hope that makes sense, right? Now let's draft. It's as simple as that. Let's draft. So with these points we have here, we'll start drafting. Now this is my pattern paper. What I have done is to minus 1 inch from here to get my starting point. Now after marking my starting point like this, I went ahead to measure my sleeve length. Sleeve length I'm using here is 22. Yours could be 23 or 24 or 25. Whatever it is, just measure it out like this and roll it down. Now the pattern we are drafting is for our front pattern and our back pattern. Yes, that also implies in our sleeve length. I know you'll be wondering, we only do front and back when we're drafting our basic bodies, right? No, it also implies in our sleeve pattern, and I'll show you how. So I'm going to divide this line into 2 to get the midpoint, and I'll connect that midpoint all the way down. Okay, now after getting this, the next thing we're going to do is to measure our cap height and mark it down. So remember what I said, that our cap height is now 6.5 because we minus 1.25 from our armhole depth. So I'll place my measuring tape here and I will measure 6.5 I'll put a dot there. I'll square it up by marking it over here like this, and then I'll rule a line horizontally to connect those points. Do you see? I'm going to call this my bicep line. Now the next measurement we're going to take is our elbow line, and to do that is quite simple. We are going to measure the distance we have here from our bicep line to our wrist line and divide it into 2 and put a dot there. I will also square it up. I will mark whatever thing I have there, and I'm going to connect this point. So this becomes our elbow line. I hope all these lines are not confusing you. Just follow me carefully. You will understand every step of the way of what I am doing. Now remember the armhole measurement that we took. Mine is 10.35. So now we are going to impute it. So place your measuring tape at the tip of your shoulder point like so. Place your measuring tape, be falling on this bicep line until it gets to your armhole measurement. Now mine is 10.35, and this is where 10.35 falls. I'll put a dot there, right? And I'll also do the same thing on this side, slanting my measuring tape like so until I get to the point where my 10.35 falls. So what I'll do next is to connect these 2 points together. Remember our armhole measurements was here. I'm going to connect it to this point, and likewise here. So we have this now. Okay, I hope you understand it to this point. So next, I'm going to take this measurement here. Measure whatever thing you have from here to this place on your bicep line. Okay, and minus 2 inches from it. What are we trying to do? We're trying to mark our wrist measurements. Okay, so this is the best way to get it. So what I have there is 7.5. I'll minus 2 inches, and I'll mark it here, and I'll mark it on this other side. And what I'll do next is to connect this point to this place and connect this one as well. Okay, I sincerely apologize so much. I didn't know that my video stopped recording, so I'm going to explain what the parts that did not feature. Or the next thing I did was to come over to this place. So I measured this diagonal line and I divided everything here into 4. First I folded it into 2 and I marked this point. Then again I folded this part into 2 to get the midpoint. And I did the same thing over here, and that is how I divided this diagonal line into 4, and I did the same thing at the back here. Now the next thing I did is to come over here to this first point, and I measured 0.75 outward. I put a mark there. I ignored this point. I came over to this guy here. I measured 0.5 inward, and I marked it. Now after that, I used a dotted line to connect this point like this before using my curve to mark it out. Now the difference between the front and the back is that after dividing it into 4 like I did here, I came over to this point and divided it again into 2 to get this point. Now the same thing I did here, I came out by 0.75 to mark this point. I ignored this part and this guy. I came down to this place and measured 0.25 inward, and then I was able to connect this point like this with a dotted line and then with a curve. That is the part that missed out from my video. That is what I did before we started forming with that leg. So haven't gotten to this point. This is actually our basic sleeve, right? But we are actually working on a fitted sleeve. So we're going to alter this pattern now, okay? Because to get a fitted sleeve, the back usually have a back dart. So what I'm going to do on this elbow line, I'm going to mark 0.25 out. So measure 0.225 and mark it. Next, I'm going to connect it to this point, okay? That's it. All right, so I'm going to measure this whole, measure it to this point and divide it into 2. So this is what I'm going to do. Place my measuring tape on it and fold it into 2. I'll put a dot there. So this point and this point. Okay. Now I'm going to come down from here by at least 1 inch. I'll put a faint dot there. Now I'm going to measure what I have here. What I have here is 3.25. Now I'm going to measure it starting from this point towards this 1 inch mark. So I'll place my mark here, and I'm going to mark is actually out from the line, but it doesn't matter. Whatever I have, I will still mark it there, putting my dot there. Okay, then I'll connect it back to this place. Please, I would like you to follow me carefully. You will definitely understand what I am doing. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that both that legs are equal, but the difference is just 1 inch. So this is the second dart leg, and this is the first dart leg. This is our midpoint. You see? So we'll go back to the waistline. So on the waist, I would like to come in from here by 0.75 and then mark 0.75. So before I connect this line, I'd like to close my dart. So before we draw a line across the dart, we have to close it. So I'm going to close my dart to match it up so that I can know the point and know where it's aligning. Okay. So quickly, I'll put a dot there. So I'm going to connect this point now directly to my 0.75. Do you see? So you can open up. When you're drawing this line, try to extend it down Do you see? Now the next thing I'll do on the right side of my sleeve, I'm going to measure the elbow point here to the wrist line. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to match it up with this other line. So whatever thing I have here, I'm going to dot the point here. So I'll place my measuring tape across like this. And what I have here is 7.75. I would like to mark the same thing on this place, placing my measuring tape here. I would like to locate where 7.75 is, and I'm going to put a dot there. Do you see? What I do is to measure my existing wrist line. Remember that the existing wrist line we have is from this point to this point. I'm going to measure it so that we can transfer it to our new wrist line. So everything I have here is 11 inches. Now, starting from this place, I'm going to transfer this existing wrist line now to the new one, and the new one is already here. So I would like to extend this line out so that I can be able to follow it as a guide. Extending my wrist line out, I would like to place my measuring tape like so, placing it on 11 inches, and I will trace it to know where it falls on this line. And I have it right here. I'll put a dot there, right? And I'm going to connect this point to this point. So quickly, I'm going to connect this point back to elbow line. Do you see? So this is your basic fitted sleeve. I hope you understood it to this point. Okay, so like I said, your basic fitted sleeve should look something like this. And with that, we've come to the end of this tutorial. I do hope that you find this tutorial helpful. And please, if you do, please leave a comment down below, like this video, share it, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll definitely see you in my next video. Bye-bye.